Welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at a very important commandment. Of course they all are. The 8th commandment is equally important. It is about our reputation and our good name. In this commandment God says, "You shall not give false testimony against your neighbor," or you shouldn't bear false witness against your neighbor. So we're going to see what that looks like. Martin Luther, in his small catechism on page 87, writes, "We should fear and love God, so that we do not tell lies about our neighbor, that we don't betray our neighbor, slander him, or hurt his reputation, but rather defend him, speak well of him, and explain everything in the kindest way." I put in some talking points today, and the commandment is forbidding us to do some things and requiring us to do others. It's forbidding us to basically throw somebody under the bus, ruin their good name, say lies about them, betray their confidences, or just flat out lying about them to make them look bad. Those are the things the commandments forbid. It also tells us that we should be doing some things. We should be requiring some things, basically putting the best construction on our neighbor. And we'll talk about what that means in just a moment. But for now, the question is, who is my neighbor and what's a reputation? Well, we all have reputations, and hopefully people have good reputations, that they're considered honest, that they have integrity, that they're good citizens, that they're a nice person, and that their name that's associated with them is a name that is held in high esteem and high regard. So your name and your reputation is very, very valuable. And when somebody harms your reputation or your name, perhaps on social media, for example, or by spreading gossip about somebody, once your reputation and name is tarnished, it's very, very difficult to get it back. A case in point would be identity theft. If somebody steals somebody's credit card or their identity and they do bad things, it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of energy to get your reputation and your name back. And the same thing even in your classroom. If somebody tells lies about you or says things about you that simply aren't true and people believe it, it can really harm you. It can harm your friendships and your relationships with other people. So the reputation is very important, your good name, and that's what this commandment is protecting. But then the question is, well, who is my neighbor? Does that mean the folks that live to the right or the left of my home? Well, the answer would be sure. But your neighbor is also your classmates and other people that you come into contact to, perhaps on the playground and sports and so forth. So your neighbor is basically your fellow human beings, however you encounter them. And this commandment is talking about your relationship with your neighbor and how you protect their good name and reputation and the things you shouldn't do. The things that are mentioned in the Bible about this is in James chapter 3. It talks about our human body and how important our human tongues are. Just like a rudder on a ship can steer a great ship, a tongue can do a lot of damage. In other words, gossip and lying about people and saying unkind things with our tongue, that's what James is all about, saying control your tongue like you'd control a horse with a bit and a bridle. Proverbs 31, 8-9, that one might not be quite as familiar to you, so if you look up Proverbs chapter 31, verses 8-9, it says, "Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, and defend the rights of the poor and needy." What it's saying is speak for those that cannot speak for themselves, and defend the rights of people who are poor and needy. In other words, help folks by being an advocate for them, not somebody that tears them down. And also in 1 Corinthians 13, that's called the love chapter. It talks about how important love is for not just husbands and wives, but for anybody that's in a human relationship, that we love and care for people. That's the good part of this commandment, is we are to put the best construction on everything. And a case in point, let's say that my car would break down on the freeway, And while I'm waiting for a tow truck to come, let's say a police officer comes with a squad car, and he says, hey, they're going to tow your car to a repair shop. Tell you what, Pastor Schubert, why don't you hop in the back of the squad car and I'll take you back to Divine Redeemer Church. So I'm in the back of the squad car and somebody happens to see me and they go, look, Pastor Schubert must have been arrested. And then somebody else passes it on, well, he must have been selling drugs or doing something bad. He's going to jail. The real deal was, none of that's true. I was simply getting a ride from a police officer, if that story would be true. Putting the best construction on it means to say, well, we don't really know why, but I'm sure it must be nothing, rather than guessing or saying something that you know to be wrong in order to tear somebody's character or reputation down. So putting the best construction on it means when you look at what your neighbor said or did or whatever, to try and put it in a good light. And if you can't, well, then it's better perhaps just to keep your mouth shut rather than spreading something that might be untrue. So we shouldn't be lying about our neighbor, we shouldn't be slandering our neighbor, but rather on the positive side, we should be defending our neighbor's name and actions and speaking well of them. That's what this commandment is all about, which is basically to defend the reputation and good name of our neighbor and put everything that they do in the best possible construction. And hopefully they'll do the same for you. That's it for today. Once again, please keep Jesus number one in your heart and life, and certainly in your home first. Thanks much. See you next time.